The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it.
You are now listening to the Outsiders Podcast, the most exciting and hard-hitting show on the net. And now, bringing it hard as always on the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL, here are your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
And appreciate her sharing Andy with us. I'm very excited to begin this new chapter in Chiefs history today by welcoming the new head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid.
And thank you for joining us here on the Outsiders Podcast. We are back at you. Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger here, and we are talking about Kansas City Chiefs, past and present. We're going to wrap up the 2012 season and maybe set the tone for 2013. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. Andy Reid, new head coach.
Andy Reid is in. Clark Hunt, you heard with the intro there, introducing him at the press conference. Andy Reid, I think, is a really, really solid hire made by Clark Hunt. I think it proves to me Clark Hunt is in this thing to win it. We had some questions coming off the end of the regular season as to whether Clark would make these moves. We thought, hearing reports, Scott Pioli might be staying.
Hearing that we're going to interview Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter and their special teams coach Keith Armstrong. Getting a little worried there that we're going to go with one of those guys, and it's going to be another crap fest.
That was our biggest fear. Noah and I talked about this off air, that we're going to wind up hiring some loser, some Dennis Allen,
Joe Philbin
type guy that's just some coordinator somewhere.
Doug Marrone is with the Bills now. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was expecting. And so I was actually on a cruise into the Bahamas during which time this took place, and I'm in my room watching ESPN, and I see Andy Reid, being unveiled, and the rumors started earlier in the week, and then it became, when it became final, was very excited about it. It did prove to me that Clark wants to win. He is going to be the guy. These guys are going to be answering to Clark now, so he's taking a more hands-on role. And Noah, your argument though here is that maybe fire Pioli, fire Cornell, hire Andy Reid, and then the fans are off his back and we're good to go now, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm worried about. I'm hoping the best that Clark's not seeing it that way, but I'm worried that maybe he signed Andy to the 5-year deal and he's thinking, okay, fans are off my back, whatever, I can go home and forget about everything. They can sign whoever, some cheap bums or whatever. I don't know if he'll re-sign Bo and go out in free agency, make the big splashes to continue this thing and really try and win a Super Bowl.
I think the groundwork has at least been laid because Andy Reid is a proven head coach in this league. We saw Lovie Smith fired after a 10-6 record. He's going to be a good pickup for someone too. Andy Reid, to me though, it was the best available fired coach, I guess, if you will. He spent 14 years in Philadelphia, 4 straight NFC Championship appearances, 1 Super Bowl appearance, never did win the Super Bowl, which actually bodes well for us considering no coach has ever won one in 2 different places. So he hasn't won one yet. He's been to one.
I might go with Lovie Smith as the number 1 guy on my list. I don't know. It's tough.
Oh, they remind me. They're similar, very similar, I think, in their skill sets. I mean, I think the knock on Andy Reid though, and then let's get right to it, is that people like to kind of make fun of the way he utilized the short passing game as a running game. They didn't think he ever really established a really good running game. And this is talking about they had some really good backs. If you think back to it, I mean, of course, LaShawn McCoy now and
Deuce Staley, Brian Westbrook.
Yeah.
I mean,
but they never really established a power running game. Used the pass to set it up. And I think that was maybe more to deal with Donovan McNabb's skill set because that bode well. He was a very, he's a quarterback with a quick release. They used the short passing game as a running game, and that was a kind of a knock on Reid. Of course, the last 2 seasons, which were 8-8 and 4-12, and of course 2 years ago they were supposed to be the super team in Philadelphia, and the wheels kind of fell off.
And Lovie Smith coming off a 10-6 season where they barely missed the playoffs. I mean,
but you know what?
What have you done for me lately, babe?
It is, but you know what? I got to thinking about this, and there's so many coaches that this applies to. A coach is somewhere long enough. In this league, it's really, really hard to be at a place longer than 4 or 5 years. You just don't see it. And these guys are in these places for so long, working with an owner, working with a GM. It's really, really hard to work, as a cohesive unit with a GM and an owner for that long without there being some sort of disconnect. Sometimes people just wear out their welcome. I look at, Mike Shanahan in Denver. Look at Marty Schottenheimer in Kansas City. The best coach we've ever had fell out of favor at some point in some way.
He did not fall out of favor. Lamar Hunt wanted him to stay. Marty Schottenheimer was on the radio, I think it was 810 a few months ago, talking about how he just couldn't get over himself and his self-loathing, if you will, for him losing in the playoffs. He couldn't take it anymore, and he felt he just needed a change of scenery.
Well, that's my point, is that that it's hard to be somewhere long enough to where that you just have this sustained relationship and things go swimmingly and you're just 15, 18, 20 years in a place and everything's going great. This happens. These guys, it's time to move on. The Philadelphia people right now are probably just excited to get rid of him. We're excited to have him. That's football. I mean, these people are not at a place for very long. Mike Shanahan won 2 Super Bowls in Denver and was gone less than 10 years later.
And I'm thinking the Broncos fans right now would like to have Shanahan back before. I mean, you've got John Fox, but Shanahan could do the same thing or even better with Peyton Manning.
Because in the NFL, these guys are CEOs, and they've got to come in and micromanage a program, and they have to deal with NFL players, which is not like it is in college, which maybe is why a lot of college coaches don't come in and have a lot of success. And we saw Chip Kelly say, forget it, I'm staying in college. And that's, and we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs are going forward. And you mentioned being worried about, Clark not making the necessary moves going forward. We're going to see how that works. Andy Reid's going to have to come in here and assess this quarterback position. We don't know what's going to happen. The draft is coming up. To me, that's where these oats will be sown with this initial, regime. Was with the draft, with free agency. We'll know a lot more after that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got so much. I've heard people say, playoffs in 2013. We don't have a GM. We don't have an offensive coordinator. We don't have a defensive coordinator. There's all kinds of stuff we need to fix on the roster with the quarterback. Are we going to sign Bo, Albert, Dorsey, Colquitt? Are we moving to a 4-3? Are we staying in a 3-4? I mean, you have all of this stuff, the whole coaching staff and scouting department. I mean, you have so many things to do. You cannot say that we are going to the playoffs. You can't say that we're not going to the playoffs. You just don't know right now.
Absolutely not. The worst thing you can do is start making, and I think fans have this need to make extreme and rash, predictions. Either we're the worst team in the NFL, we're going to the playoffs. It's one of the, there's a lot of gray area in between those things, and fans need to realize that. So, we saw how quickly teams like Washington, Indianapolis turned it around, and you wind up with a quarterback. Yeah, you could be 11-5 next year.
The Dolphins went 1-15. The next year they went 11-5. So
yeah, it's possible, and we're gonna have to see what happens. We'll make our predictions. Once the off season, it blends into training camp and next August, because that's when we'll really start to know. But as we close the door on this 2012, Noah, to me this is undoubtedly the worst season in Chiefs history, even though it tied for the worst record with the 2008 Chiefs, which were abysmal as well. But to me, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I don't think we hold a lead until week 8, something like. This is the worst thing I've ever seen, and
thank God it's over.
Thank God it's over. I mean, there are no more diehard Chiefs fans than who you are listening to right now. I can promise you that. Guarantee you that. But Noah and I sat inside Arrowhead a couple times this year, just like I didn't even want to be there.
No,
there's nowhere I'd rather be. I'm the biggest football fan, biggest Chiefs. You'll see.
I got burnt. I looked miserable. Like a lobster after the game.
You look like a lobster 2 different times this year. We even had, guess what? Noah and I even had burgers and good times outside the stadium, and we still managed to go in and have a bad time because the Chiefs were horrible.
Yep, we didn't have the burger and just, we got our W for the day.
Nope.
Let's just go in and cheer and get on fan cam and whatever. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, and football season never ended for us, folks. We never decided that it was over regardless. We were watching at the end when Denver was beating us 35-3, and it was great times. But this is the worst season. Of course, we had the Jovan Belcher situation. That's going to stick out in a lot of people's mind. But really, when it comes down to it, Scott Pioli made criminal decisions in the last year and a half of his time here in Kansas City, and that absolutely killed us.
He made a criminal decision at the beginning of his tenure, trading for and signing to the 6-year, $65 million deal, Matt Castle. That was the end of Scott Pioli, right?
Well, not only that, I think that situation in and of itself is forgivable. Bringing Matt Castle in is forgivable.
No. Go ahead.
But not supplementing it with anything for 3 years or replacing him at any point, except for when he was absolutely forced. And
well, as soon as you brought him in, he signed him to the 6-year, $65 million contract. So that right there, if you want to bring him in for his 1-year deal, see how he does, and then pay him.
Someone was going to pay him, though. I mean, at the time, I think they gave him too much money, and I think it was hitching your wagons to the wrong person, all that. Don't worry, I agree with you. But I'm saying try to bring in a quarterback is forgivable. They tried that one. It was 4 years ago. We tried to bring in a quarterback. 4 years later, I guess we're going to have to try to bring in a few more. We'll see how things shake out. We're going to be talking about this Andy Reid hire, all this stuff with Kevin Ross, Rock. He's coming up with us, so we're going to see what Kevin Ross has to say
The
on
Rock.
the topic. Man, hey, if anyone knows the Chiefs organization, knows football, it is him. So we're going to defer to him on some of these topics and see what. And we are continuing to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, and who better to do that with one of our special guests who has joined us many times throughout the year. We've got Rock, Kevin Ross, joining us today. Kevin, we've had a lot of things come down the pike here since we last talked to you. Romeo Crennel is out, Scott Pioli is out, Andy Reid is in. Just give us your thoughts on how the Chiefs have handled this brief offseason so far.
Well, it looks like they're making necessary moves to better the team and make everybody in the city pretty happy.
Oh, absolutely. And do you think in this case that Clark Hunt, his hand was forced? I mean, with how bad the season ended, do you think that there was any way business-wise he could even remotely have a chance of bringing back Pioli or Crennel?
No, I didn't. I didn't think he could go on like it was going on, and the fans, they kind of made it clear that they were not going to return if the same regime was in there. So he did what he had to do. Hopefully he continues to upgrade. And the main thing is that I hope out of the whole thing is that the atmosphere in the building changes big time. I've seen a lot of unhappy employees when I would come through there. So it seems like hopefully that returns.
Yeah, you saw a lot of people like Jeff Fisher, Peyton Manning, that would not even come here to interview or to talk about coming here because of how the management was, how the front office was. Just a complete disconnect. So I definitely agree with you there. And now we're talking about Andy Reid, of course, comes in after 14 years in Philadelphia. What do you know about Coach Reid, and what can you tell us about what he's going to bring to the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, me being back in Georgia, I've seen the Philadelphia Eagles 4 times this year live. One thing I know about Coach Reid, through the papers, what have you, he seems to be a player's coach, so they'll like that. They'll like that aspect of it. He's got a winning record. They'll like that. He's a proven winner, so he has a formula for winning. We'll see how it goes.
Do you think Clark Hunt is done here and thinking that this is the big splash to get the fans back, or do you think he'll go further and make big splashes in free agency as well?
Well, it depends on who's free agents. I think that, right away they have to upgrade the quarterback position. So they're not done. They're not done as far as that goes. I don't think they can continue with the same quarterback and think that they're going to get different results. So they'll have to look into who's available at quarterback. I know that Michael Vick will not be in Philadelphia. I know people back there maybe don't want that, but Vick was not given a good chance here in Philadelphia, so we'll see what happens with that. I think he would create some excitement. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's surrounding with the right things and let him do what he does, and he'll be a pretty efficient quarterback. As far as people coming out in the draft, they don't seem to be as high as they were on Barkley. They seem to drop a little bit on Geno Smith, so I don't know what they're going to do as far as the quarterback goes.
And Kevin, I want to ask you about quarterbacks, as you brought that up earlier. Andy Reid has a history with Donovan McNabb. He took him in the 1999 draft, took him ahead of guys like Achilles Smith, Dante Culpepper, had a long, fruitful relationship in Philadelphia. Do you trust Andy Reid and this staff to come in here and draft a quarterback and have a long relationship with that quarterback?
I think that's what he's known for, really. I think he is what they call a quarterback developer, a great evaluator of the quarterback position. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out this year, but you can get a diamond in the rough like Russell Wilson and see what happens. It doesn't have to be a first rounder to make it work there. There's some other people on some rosters that maybe they could trade for or what have you. I like what I saw. I went down to the Washington Redskin game with the Seattle Seahawks yesterday, and I saw Cousins play. In previous games and things like that. He's a good good talent. You never know. You have to see what they have plans for. I'm sure they got plans working.
Andy Reid's been known to run the 4-3 defense the whole time, the 14 years he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. So how would that work if he came to Kansas City with Tamba Hali, Justin Houston, Glenn Dorsey? How would he switch to a 4-3?
That would be better for the linemen they have right there in Kansas City. All those LSU boys are 4-3 guys. That would work in their favor, I believe. Tamba Hali would have to just either put his, hand in the dirt for good, or have to be versatile, kind of like what they did with Derek Thomas and all of there. So we'll see what happens with him.
I want to ask you about Eric Berry, a guy who came back from a knee injury this year. Of course, you're very familiar with the position he plays, obviously. He was voted to the Pro Bowl, but a lot of people didn't think he quite came back and had the impact that they expected him to have. I mean, what is your assessment of a guy like Eric Berry, a stud out of college, had a great rookie year, and then had the injury, but just to kind of assess his play for us?
Well, let me put it like this right here to you. I don't think Eric Berry had a real good year this year. I think the Pro Bowl is a popularity vote. But I'm going to say this: Eric Berry, when healthy, he's a hell of a player. He can make that happen. But I think like I said, a year next year maybe. He'll be back to his regular form, but this year right here, I don't think he was back to regular form.
I wanted to ask you about Dwayne Bowe and the back-and-forth stories of him maybe not wanting to re-sign here or wanting to. And do you think with the hiring of Andy Reid that might push him back to wanting to re-sign with the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't know where his head is as far as Dwayne Bowe could be a very dangerous player. I mean, Dwayne Bowe and any other player in the NFL right now, they don't realize that clock is ticking, and you want to stay in the best situation you can to win ball games. And I believe if Dwayne Bowe comes in shape, and if he starts being about team, then things will happen good for him.
I want to go back real briefly to one thing that I think Scott Pioli did that was fireable in and of itself, and this is, again, positions that lots about. We're talking about the secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs. Last year they had a choice. They could bring back and re-sign Brandon Carr. They wound up letting him go. He goes to Dallas and is an absolute stud there. You know how important it is to have that lockdown secondary. We've had him in Kansas City in the early 90s with yourself. Do you think that was a piece that really should be held against Pioli as far as letting go of Brandon Carr and with pairing him with a guy like Flowers, Eric Berry, Kenneth Willis?
If he's the sole reason why he let him go, sure it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't let guys like him go. You don't let guys like Tony Gonzalez go. You just don't let those kind of people go. They're good people on and off the field. They're good for your city. They're good for your team. They're good for morale. I mean, some of these things that these guys do, not even playing-wise, it's just the effect they have on you, that they can make you play better. You want to play better for some certain people. And those guys are those kind of guys.
Well, tell you what, Kevin, you have been outspoken all year. We heard you on 610 earlier in the season. You've talked to us several times this year, and it sounds like we all agree that things are hopefully going to get better and better than they were. So we thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch up again. I'll tell you what, hope you had a wonderful holiday, and we look forward to catching up to you again as the draft approaches, my man.
Okay, you take it easy, and good luck to the organization and team.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Rock.
Okay.
Thanks a lot to Kevin Ross for joining us yet again. He must really like us, Noah. He keeps coming on the show.
Yeah, I think this is about his 4th time on the show now, so
wow.
Thank you a lot, Rock, for
I
coming
did not
on.
think we had that kind of pull.
Apparently we do, Clint. Apparently we do.
We've talked to Sean Salisbury before. Now he won't answer our calls.
Twice we've talked to him. That was great.
I'll never forget it. I listen to that every night before I go to bed. But
I listen to it every morning when I wake up.
It seems like Kevin is pretty content on this being a good decision for the Chiefs bringing in Andy Reid, and I think
well, the man won 10 playoff games in his 14 years at Philadelphia. We have won 8 in the history of our franchise, so there you go.
That is unreal. That is unreal. The Chiefs haven't won a playoff game in 20 years. Someone I heard an Eagles fan say, he hasn't won a playoff game in 4 years, Andy Reid. The Chiefs haven't won one in 20. So if we go every 4 years and win a playoff game, I'll be just floored by it.
Well, I heard somebody say that Chiefs fans would be extremely happy if we won the 5 NFC championship, or went to 5 NFC championships, went to the Super Bowl once, and I disagree with that. I want the Super Bowl victory.
Of course.
If that's what we get, and we're looking at this afterwards, and Andy Reid's far gone, and we had the 5 AFC championships and 1 Super Bowl appearance but lost, I'll be disappointed. I won't look back on that with fond memories.
It's hard. I think that I look back on Marty Schottenheimer era with fond memories, and we couldn't get over the hump there. I think that it's all relative. I mean, the Eagles obviously are going to look at it probably like you do. The Eagles fans probably right now are thinking of, oh my gosh, like couldn't get there. He just couldn't. I mean, the time they made it, it was Donovan McNabb versus Tom Brady, which I'm sorry is a mismatch. He didn't quite have the quarterback good enough to win that Super Bowl when they played New England. But compared to what we have right now, 4 straight AFC Championship appearances and a Super Bowl sounds like the greatest thing ever. But you want to win one. If you don't win one, is everything a complete failure?
I'm sure the fans listening right now would totally disagree with me. They'd be thrilled, excited for those AFC Championship appearances. I mean, I would too, but I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's about winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, there's no doubt.
The Lombardi Trophy. And I just don't think
baby steps,
the
Noah.
fans listening
baby
to this
steps.
feel the same way.
Oh, I agree. I don't think we even had one fan this year say that who cares about getting to the Super Bowl anyway? It's just a bunch of commercials and what? The World Championship, the Lombardi Trophy, and you're going to tell me who cares to get to it because it's just about Kim Kardashian and the freaking press box? Give me one of those and I can die tomorrow and I'd be happy, and I swear to God that's the case.
Exactly. Get me that Lombardi Trophy.
That's it.
Hold it in the air. That's what I want to see.
That's it. That's all it's about. But
for other people, they want the tailgates and being with their friends and the atmosphere and bring some winning football, some 12-4 seasons, and losing in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl or the divisional playoff round or whatever it may be, and they're fine with that. Well, we had a good year. No, we didn't. We didn't win the Super Bowl.
Well, this franchise is going to have to take baby steps towards that. And you know what? Maybe not so much, because in the NFL you can get it turned around, and maybe in 2 years we're talking about a 13-3. Maybe Peyton Manning's neck is broken again.
Like 14-2. Let's stay away from 13-3.
Well, yeah, it just multiples of 16 just kind of come in my head. 9-7, 10-6,
could
8-8.
be 18 here in a little.
Oh no way! So. I sure hope not. But that'll throw me off. I really won't be able to spout off a prediction, a record off the top of my head.
RG3 wouldn't make it to the playoffs if there were 18 games.
True. No NFC East team ever would. No way. But, and I think one thing about this Andy Reid thing that people are bringing up is, does he still have the passion, the fire? I mean, he was in Philadelphia 14 years, and he's had these family issues. To me, I think that if he didn't have the passion or the fire to keep winning and to keep coaching, he would have just sat the year out. He's been somewhere 14 years. He could have afforded to take a year off, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 like Cowher.
Maybe this is just all he knows, and this is what he's going to do. But maybe he still doesn't have the fire or passion. Maybe he just doesn't want to take the year off and deal with his family and his son in rehab. Maybe he just wants to stay in the. I just don't know.
Well, the Chiefs are really good at giving away money. If that's the case, then maybe so. But
he only stole a lot. Castle stole a lot.
I'm going to go ahead and relate, and tell me if you agree with me on this. I'm going to go ahead and relate Andy Reid. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and relate this Andy Reid hire to that of the Rams hiring Jeff Fisher a year ago. Someone that was at a place a really long time. He went to a Super Bowl with the Titans. He's a very good coach. No matter what, if he
have their quarterback, he turned down RG3 and sold the second-round pick for King's ransom, 3 first-rounders and a second-rounder. So that's a little different there. They have their quarterback.
Yeah, no, of course it is. I'm talking about the hire of the coach in and of itself, meaning that Jeff Fisher came in and immediately they were a better team.
I agree.
Just because of his coaching. I think Marty Schottenheimer was a guy like that.
Well, it's going to be impossible for anyone to come in here and be worse than what we saw this year.
Yeah, let's get back into 2012 because I wanted to give a nice little grade card in all of our positions and these coaches because it's we get graded in our everyday lives, so I think it's fair to grade.
I get an F every day.
My life is nothing but an F minus, so let's give some F minuses to these.
Unsatisfactory, sad face.
We talked about the fact that Matt Castle won 1 game this year. Brady Quinn won 1 game this year. We were 2-2 against the NFC South. Pretty good division. Take that. And 0-14 against everybody else. So pretty cool. No wins against the AFC team, which is why we get the number 1 pick to begin with. So let's start with in 2012, the Chiefs' offensive line, which seemed to have some injuries and some inconsistency. I'm going to say a D on the offensive line. We couldn't seem to pass block whatsoever.
I was going to go D+.
Okay.
Looks like Jamal Charles had a good season. They
Albert,
were able to open some
is it
holes.
just me or is it Brandon Albert in every single football game down, clutching a limb like he's never going to play football again? Every game.
He might as well just go somewhere else. Let's just go with Donald Stevenson and get it over with. So,
all right,
I give him a
line.
D+. Clint gives him a D, and that's where they stand.
Running backs, we had Peyton Hillis act like he is me out there running the football. He's horrible and never should be seen on a football field again. And then Pro Bowl season from Jamal Charles. I give that a. What do you give that? I'm scared.
I'm scared too. I'm going to go ahead and give him a B as a total. I mean, Jamal Charles brings it up with his probably A, and then Peyton Hillis takes it down with his D. I'm going to go with a B because I liked what Cyrus Gray, Sean Drawn gave us a little bit. So
I'll agree. I'll say B-. I think. Yeah, Peyton Hillis giving you nothing brings the grade down a little bit, but Jamal Charles...
We're agreeing too much. This is horrible
well,
radio.
You know what? I'm going to say C+ now because Jamal Charles only had a couple touchdowns.
He had a game where he only had 5 carries. That wasn't good.
Now, and Romeo still doesn't know why. Neither do we. Receivers. We had Dwayne Bowe. You've got Steve Reston, who was inactive half of a season. We have Kevin Boston killed after one game. We had John Baldwin do nothing. The passing game was horrible, one of the worst, and we'll get to that position in a minute. But
I can't grade the receivers that hard because the quarterback.
I'm still going.
And Romeo and Dayball are so horrible.
Well, then why don't we just give an F to those people, and then that takes care of everybody. But I'm going to say D on receivers. It just wasn't good. Baldwin looks like a bust to me, even though he doesn't have a quarterback. I don't know.
I give the receivers a P, as in pass. They get a pass this year because the whole situation was so god-awful. It is not even funny, even though I'm laughing right now because it is funny. Anyway.
Speaking of laughing, the quarterback position.
F minus.
Are you sure?
Q, J, Z.
What? Now, hold on. Matt Castle and Brady Quinn, they try really, really hard.
They did try. They seem like nice guys.
And Brady Quinn, could probably be like a Stetson model or something. I'd give it that.
And Matt Castle, I'm sure he's out mowing the lawn and taking care of the yard work for his
giving
lovely
high fives to his little daughters.
Yeah, and maybe mowing the neighbor's lawn too for him. That's nice.
So F- still though.
Oh yeah, maybe a Z.
Worst quarterback play I've seen in a long time. I mean, between the two of them, I couldn't even distinguish who was playing.
This is worse than like the mid-90s Bengals and Saints quarterback play with Klingler and Billy Joe Hobart and
That's
Billy
awesome.
Joe Hebert or whatever.
Wow.
It was awful.
Oh my gosh. And maybe throw in some Jim Everett in there as well.
Chris Everett.
Chris!
Oh,
we're fighting. You don't hear it. We're sorry. He told me not to call. I told him never to call me Chris again. Okay, quarterbacks is F-. How about let's go to defensive line? The 3-4 defense, it's hard to grade a defensive line. I'm going to say U for unknown because I just don't know. Like, Tyson Jackson got a couple sacks down the stretch.
I thought Jackson
Dorsey was hurt most of the year. Poe had a good year.
I liked Poe. I liked Rapati Patoatua. I give them a C+.
Take that.
I think they had a pretty good year. Especially...
Man, we're giving some pretty high grades here for the worst team I've ever seen.
We are. What is with that?
I don't get it, but...
well, the coaching staff, they all get F-, minus,
God.
and the quarterbacks.
How about linebackers? Derek Johnson.
That's what's most important, a coaching staff and quarterbacks.
Derek Johnson finishes with a Pro Bowl season, and I thought he played really well. And Justin Houston and Tamba Hali created really good pressure out of that 3-4. Joanne Belcher...
I look for more out of my outside linebackers, C-.
Okay.
I look for a lot
Tom
more out of
Hali
those
only
two
had,
guys.
nine sacks? That's not very much for him. For Hali, I think he had kind of a down year to me.
Yep,
Houston,
C-.
Houston had 2 or 3 in a game. I think Houston had a pretty good year. Let's go secondary. Eric Berry makes the Pro Bowl.
I want to go back to Derek Johnson before you move on to the secondary.
Come on! Moving on to the secondary.
How about an A for Derek Johnson? He was all over the field.
Yeah.
The only person that gets an A, so... I don't know if anybody else even gets a B in the rest of the defense, but we'll see. We're going through them, so...
Let's go to the secondary, finally.
I'm ready.
Eric Berry makes the Pro Bowl in a year I thought, and Kevin Ross agreed that he was had a down year. Brandon Flowers, I think, was solid at one corner. We just did not have another corner to complement him with the disaster of the Stanford route signing and him being cut midway through the year. Just a disaster. Teams seem to really be able to pass on this defense. I'm going to say D-.
Ooh, that's a little rough, I think. I'd give Flowers...
Really?
Yeah!
Oh.
I mean, Lewis and Jaleel Brown and Rout and Arenas, yeah, they deserve it.
That's a lot of players you just mentioned. They all played quite a bit.
And they played horribly,
exactly.
I give that. But Barry, I think he deserves maybe a C, a solid C.
Okay.
And I'd give Flowers a B-.
I'm not going to, but, to me.
But the rest are F's, so I guess that can average out to a D. I'll give you that.
Maybe it's, regardless, it was atrocious and not good enough. And a lot of that to me is if Brandon Carr had been a part of this team, might have been a whole different defense.
If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a wonderful Christmas. But anyway.
I just now got that. It took me a minute.
Yeah.
The coaching
What about
staff.
Brandon Seiler? We didn't go to that inside linebacker position. One
Horrible.
of them was gone, and then he just vanished. And then we got Brandon Seiler.
Actually,
out
Seiler played pretty well in a couple games. He was making tackles in some of those late games.
I'd give him a C minus. Yeah,
he wasn't the worst player I've ever seen, which is saying
gone,
something.
So anyway,
well, let's go to the coaching staff because to me they're all fired. It almost doesn't even matter because they're all fired except for Gibbs. So
yeah, I think Gibbs is the only one that survived. Andy Reid interviewed each coach. He went from the oldest, so I'm guessing he started with Emmett Thomas, to the youngest.
Just fired.
And went through them all, gave them all a chance to state their case, and you're all gone.
Surprised Brian Daboll didn't make it through that list of cuts.
Me too, and Romeo.
Wow. Guys,
I'm sure Andy Reid gave Romeo a chance to state his case and come back.
I don't even have a grade for that coaching staff. It's the worst coaching staff I've seen since maybe some of those Lions teams with Morning Wig.
I mean, F minus. I mean, what else can you do? They were just god awful.
Well, that was fun. That really cheered me up, and we were talking
tight ends. I know we kind of lumped them in.
Yeah,
with the
we lumped them in because
but
we didn't talk about Moyaki specifically, who had a couple games where he was able to get open.
I'd give
Steelers
him a C.
game.
I'd give him a C.
Okay, fair enough. And
fullbacks, I kind of liked that DeMarco at the end of the year. He was making some good blocks. I'd give him a B minus.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see where this roster turns over to. You talked about, the 3-4. We're going to go back to the 4-3. What's going to happen with Dorsey, Albert, all the guys we need to resign, Bo. That's going to be where this roster. I think that's a heart of a roster, and we're going to see.
What about special teams? We got Suckup and Colquitt. Colquitt makes the Pro Bowl there. Although I'm not sure he had the best average in the league. He just had the most punts and pinned some people inside the 20 and inside the 10. But
well, regardless, we're going to be...
I'm thinking we maybe let him go and draft that Brad Wing from LSU.
An LSU player in the draft?
Yes.
Sign me up.
And how about that kicker from Florida State? I hear he made the most field goals in college history with 88. So maybe we draft those two and get rid of Suckup and Colquitt.
Or just trade for Sebastian Janikowski. Either way, on the Florida State kicker.
He's 90.
Well, he'll beat us twice next year with long kicks.
Yeah. Everyone will beat us next year. It's going to be awful.
You said we can't make extremes. We cannot do it, and I refuse.
I just did.
I refuse.
We lose them all.
I refuse to say that we're going to lose or defeat the Raiders either time.
No, the roster's not set. The coaching staff, the scouting department, nothing's set. You can't say anything yet.
Well, guys, we're going to be talking Chiefs. We're going to be talking draft as that gets closer, as moves get made. We wanted to just give one big final farewell, hoot and holler to the 2012 Chiefs. The funeral has happened. That season's laid to rest. 2013 with Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to be talking about it. We're not going to quit football. We promise you that.
No, we'll always be here, hopefully with Monty Kiffin as your defensive coordinator. Maybe Brad Childress or Doug Peterson as offensive coordinator.
Wow, that was very bold. We'll see where things go, guys. Keep listening to the Outsiders Podcast for more things sports-related, not just football, all through the winter. Don't even bother calling us during baseball season.